begin today's recording by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we are on. I am on Burrawang land. Where are you, Breezer?
I am on the land of the Djajarurrung people.
We pay our respects to the elders past and present and extend that respect to our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who are tuning in today.
And wherever you're listening to the potty today, make sure you know whose land you're on. Join us each week for some booze-free banter about life without booze.
If you're entertaining cutting back your booze by a day, a week, a month, or for the rest of your life, we would love for you to tune in.
Buckle up and come along for a ride that may just change your life. If any of today's conversations have been triggering, please reach out to your local support centre in Australia. That is Lifeline 131114. Let's crack a can, Meso.
Let's crack one, Breezer. Let's do it.
I've got some breaking news. I actually cracked into Altina's non-alcoholic wine, the new range, last night. So I had the pepperberry Shiraz.
Oh, the Shiraz.
The Shiraz. And what a great drop.
Oh, top
I'm
drop.
a fan. I'm a fan. Yep, I'm a fan.
Has it overtaken Sangria?
Oh, that's a big call, isn't it? No.
No.
Sangria is still my favourite, but definitely it's up there, and definitely one of the better non-alc reds that I have tasted. Bit of a sore spot, the non-alc reds, but I can definitely recommend the pepperberry Shiraz by Altina. Well done, Altina.
I don't even know why I tried to compare Sangria and a Shiraz. That was just silly.
Same, different, mate.
Oh, good. Yum.
What were you tucking into? What are you tucking into?
Well, I'm on tour today, so I'm away from home. So I can't lie to the crowd because YouTubers can see that I'm away from home at the moment. I'm remote. But I can't wait to try those Altina when I get back home real quick.
I can't wait for you to try them either, mate. So I reckon you'll love the Savvy Bee and the Kakadu Plum.
Oh.
Rosé. Oh.
Yeah, rosé all day.
Rosé,
yeah,
baby.
Hey, what are they giving us?
Yes, they have given us, they've upped the ante, peeps. We are now happy to say, and we said it last week actually, that our listeners can now get 15% off the Altina range. What's the Dixie code, Meso?
BFB 15, which we'll get you 15% off when you visit www.altinadrinks.com. Thanks,
Thank
Altina.
You,
We love you.
Meso.
Reza, how you going?
Great. A bit of a different intro today, isn't it?
Yeah, we had a bit of a debacle yesterday. I had to get off the phone quick smart to look after my dad, and so we've got to do a late intro. So I'm on tour. I'm up on the Gold Coast at the moment.
We're in a hotel room.
About to fly. But let's talk about the guest we had on. He's about to hop on in a minute from yesterday.
Get your head around that, peeps.
Yeah, whoa. So we have just had Drew Wild. He's the addiction guy. He deals in addiction, trauma, codependency coach, and he's bridging the gap between your pain and your potential. How good was his chat?
Oh, he was brilliant, mate, though. He was brilliant.
Honestly, I just love how he's curious and he's inquisitive, and this was like, no, I'm not just going to go with the status quo. I want to know more. I'm going to go against the grain here and just dig deep and find the why. Wants to know why.
The why, yeah.
Yeah.
And I loved how he brought humour to the table, which, you know, can often be a dark topic to talk about addiction. But he takes the piss out of himself. He makes light of things just to lighten the mood, I guess. That's part of his, I suppose, surviving mechanism. But I love the chat.
Same. He's making some big waves. And how good was it when he spoke about what he's doing in this space? He was beaming, wasn't he?
Beaming.
He's had the fire in his belly and you can't help it. It's infectious. So we love this, Drew.
Yeah, the door's always open too, as you'll hear in the potty. He's open for business. If you want to slide into his DMs, have a chat, he's there for the peeps. So we love that. We love his generosity.
Yes, great one, Drew. And you should have heard how he actually said hello to us when he first came on the pod.
We weren't recording then, damn it.
It was pretty funny.
Pumped our
Leave that
tires
up to your leave that to your wild imagination. But yeah, Aussies and Kiwis going at it.
That's it. That's
All
it.
right, here he is.
Let's bring him in.
Let's bring him in. Welcome, Drew. Wild.
A big booze-free Bants with buddies. Welcome to our friend Drew Wild. Welcome to the podcast, Drew. Here he is.
Welcome, Drew.
What's up? Thank you for having me.
I love that. We got a little whoop whoop. You should have heard what he said off air.
Should have recorded that, damn it.
Yeah.
I think only the Aussies and Kiwis would probably relate to some of that language.
100%. Yeah. We love that. So, Drew, you know the potty, you know how it works. We're going to throw straight in with either a shame story or a confession session. Can't speak. Use your words, Claire. Confession session. Your pick.
Confession session or a shame story. Oh, fuck. How long have you got? About half of my life was a bit of a shame story. I think it's the undertone and underhum and undercurrent for a lot of people that have, gone through any form of addiction or whatever you want to call it, label it, this journey. But some things that come to mind. Robbing my mum blind when, taking advantage of having access to her bank accounts after my dad died. That probably, that doesn't feel great. That still gives me a bit of a contortion in the gut, so to speak.
Yeah.
I don't know about shame, probably one of my biggest regrets. Had the opportunity to go to ACDC with my dad.
Oh,
Haka. Still here, but chose booze and drugs over that. And so, didn't get that opportunity.
That pains, that hurts.
Yeah, it does. It stings, but I've done a lot of work on that, so it doesn't sting as much as it once used to.
Yeah. How much money were you talking that you fleeced from your mum?
Whoa, far out. Would have been over 50K before she started to notice. I think it was like maybe a year and a half later, a bank manager came knocking on the door.
Really?
Yeah.
Cash withdrawals?
Yeah. All of it. I knew all the credit card numbers. I knew everything.
Oh, bloody hell! How's that?
And to be fair, part of it probably kept me alive for quite some time.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
positive spin on it.
Yeah. Whether we maybe can see it or not, I think a lot of our addictions are actually, if we didn't have it, the next step would just to be not to be here. As much as chaos and calamity it does cause in our life. What else is there?
Have you made peace with your mum, Drew? Sorry, just to go back.
It's been a process. It's been a massive process. That'll be a part of my story I'll dive into a little bit deeper down the track. But it's been it's been the core of my work probably over the last 18 months. It's been really peeling back the layers of the relationship that I had with my mum when I was younger.
Yeah, wow.
And when I started peeling that back, for me, everything made sense.
Yep.
Everything started to make sense. So, there's been some deep work I've had to do on that relationship to get to the point where we're at now, where, we're amicable and we have a relationship, but that relationship has some really solid boundaries that it never had.
Yeah, wow.
And it has some real solid, different shifts in power dynamics that it didn't used to have. It took me stepping out of, being the little boy that I was for many years as a grown-ass adult, and actually, taking a bit of power back in that relationship. So, that was fascinating, but I'll expand on that maybe further down the track.
Yeah,
those are probably some of the biggest ones that come to mind, but, just general shame and full stop, I lived in a perpetual state of shame. There was just so much shame around this every day, the way that I acted, the way that I behaved, the way that I showed up. It's the undercurrent and underhum of hundreds of every single one of my clients that I've ever worked with over the many years is this deep-seated shame, and it stems from just this misunderstanding and misconception of what addiction actually really is and where it stems from. And so when you are behaving in the ways that some of us have, it's like, fuck yeah, that shame is real.
Yeah. Well, which actually brings us to the next question. But I will actually just give a shout out to everyone doing work And everyone
Hell yeah.
creating boundaries. Can we give a shout out to everyone doing the work?
Especially with family. Holy
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a big deal.
That's massive.
Yeah, you talked about the word shame was really prevalent in that time, Drew. Can you describe in 3 words or less, how would you describe yourself then and how would you describe yourself now?
Describe myself then. I'd say, well, like if I put myself in the shoes, if I spoke from who I was then, I would have just said completely fucked. You know, I meet myself with a lot more love and compassion these days.
Love it.
But if it was just me back then, yeah, completely fucked.
Yeah.
Completely fucking lost.
Yeah.
And actually really confused.
Lost, confused, and fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And now?
And now, aware.
Love aware.
Aware. Yeah, very aware. Deeply fucking connected.
Loving these words.
Yeah,
so much.
deeply connected. Connected to me, connected to all that is. And I'd say just really fucking authentic.
Oh, I've got goosebumps with all of those. Did
Brilliant.
you as well, Breezer?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Love it.
And I'd say I love that I can claim that and really feel that and know that is my truth as well, because, you know, I'd say for pretty much all of my life, you know, I was a definition of inauthentic.
Yeah, wow.
The definition of just like living a lie. And again, I'll expand on that further down this potty, but it was like,
Mm-mm.
who do you want me to be?
People pleaser.
Yeah.
And that's a huge shift, a massive shift from where you were to where you are now.
Monumental. I just show up, be constantly trying to scope and feel out who I needed to be or what mask I needed to wear on the day in order to make sure I fit in, you know, or I was loved or approved of or validated or accepted in some way, shape or form.
I just got goosebumps.
Same.
That's massive.
That's huge. Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, brilliant. That's quote of the ep, peeps, by the way. Write that down. Drew, I don't think there's any child that, when asked the question, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" would put their hand up and say, "I want to be a drug addict and alcoholic."
No.
Can you tell us how did you get there? How did you get there? And can you paint us a picture of your addiction?
Yeah. All right. Long story short, you know,
give us the warts and all.
The warts and all. The truth is, and again, that this is from like doing some very deep seated fucking work on myself. You know, I can feel the energy in me from the day I was conceived. That's my truth. I believe that this all stems from, you know, dysregulated nervous system. And I'll expand on that further down the track. But I could feel that dysregulated nervous system from literally the day I was conceived. You know, even in utero, what we don't realize is that we're attuning to our mom. We're attuning to our mother's energy. We've little feelers, absolute little fucking sponges. And so I've been in process and I've felt how unsafe I actually felt, you know, even in the womb. I felt unsafe. And so even as a kid, I just always had this undertone, this underhum of like dread. I'm not safe. I'm not loved or accepted as I am. And again, I'll expand on that further down the point. It took me a long time before I could figure out what all that meant and how that manifested in my life. Obviously, as a child, I had no conscious awareness of this whatsoever. And most of us don't. One of my favorite quotes is that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our life and we'll call it fate. And so, you know, there was all these contributions to who I became, but I was completely disconnected and unaware of how and why they were creating the reality I started to live. So, you know, I could even see it in just the way that I would entertain myself as a kid. You know, it was like just full immersion in whatever I was doing. And it created a sense of disconnection from this dis-ease within myself that I felt. I felt this dis-ease, this discomfort. And so I'd always find and create ways to sort of create alternative realities for myself. And then it just started to work really fucking well when I found weed at like 11 years old. I smoked weed for the first time at 11. I found my dad's stash at like 11 and I smoked and I was like, oh, whoa, what the fuck? I was like, I felt peace. I felt calm. I felt the sense of like, holy shit, like I feel relaxed. One of the first times in my entire life. It's like I didn't realize what that even meant, because it's like, so you don't know what you don't know, right? It's like, imagine you have a air conditioning unit on in the background your entire life, and it's not until someone switches it off that you're like, what the fuck? I didn't even realize that it was on.
Yeah, wow.
Wow. My son's nearly 11, Drew. Like, he's a few months turning 11, and I'm just picturing him. I just can't get my head around it. Yeah, I can't get my head around it.
Got a big joint in his mouth. And look, mind you, it wasn't a regular thing at that age, but it was the first time that I smoked, and it was like, but it was a sense of peace, calm, relief. Is a big one that I was always seeking, a sense of relief. A sense of comfort, a sense of soothing. And that's what it felt like. It was like, oh shit, okay, cool, wow. Don't know what that was or is, but that felt good. Let's do that again. And just went and found more of it. Found that in drink. Found that started drinking. I don't know. I should probably first got drunk again. I wouldn't be far off 11 or 12 years old, something like that. For one, from an outsider's looking in, my childhood was cushy as fuck. It was very like normal. Again, from the outside looking in, it was very normal. I went to school. I did pretty well at school. I was great at sport. I played a lot of rugby. And it was normal for all of my friends to like get really fucking stoned really regularly. It was really normal for like my entire year group and form to drink on the weekends. Like that was just what you did. It was like this binge drinking culture that is really prevalent, particularly in Australia and New Zealand. And but again, like it wasn't out of control. I was probably maybe the one at the parties that occasionally took things, further than others, or occasionally woke up not remembering what the fuck had happened, or occasionally woke up having to like clean up a bit of the wreckage of the past or the night before. It really wasn't until I had a young love. My girlfriend at high school, we got together. I was about 16. Started taking like harder drugs towards the end of school. Left school, traveled for a year. I was still with my girlfriend at the time. Again, just taking more recreational drugs and things like that while I was traveling around the world. Came home just with a bit of an ego. Thought I was someone that I kind of wasn't. No, it's not true. I thought I was who I was. I was, hanging out who I deemed to be like the cooler crowd at the time, and really treated this girlfriend of mine like, she was always second best, unfortunately, and got to the point where, it just got toxic. It got really toxic, and, my wounds were playing into her wounds were playing into my wounds, which I can see now again as a fucking 19-year-old boy. It's the last thing you're looking at. You just see chaos and turmoil and heartbreak. And we ended up separating, and it was toxic. I was sleeping with her friends, she was sleeping with my friends, and like it was just heartbreak. Feelings, right? Feelings and emotions that I had no idea what to do with. Absolutely no idea what to do with. This is at the core of most of what I teach and preach, is that, most of these problems, addiction, distraction, whatever you want to call it, is basically hinged on this human inability to feel and process emotions. No one teaches us this shit.
Yeah.
In fact, most of us and a lot of us are conditioned out of feeling and expressing. Full stop. And that can come through a myriad of different ways, right? It can just be like the mum or the dad that shuts you down if you're having a cry or a tantrum, or you're trying to just get some sort of a need met, and it's like, no, you can't be that for whatever reason. Or, lad culture, boys don't cry, men don't express their feelings, guys don't talk. That's why suicide rates are, in men especially, absolutely through the roof, particularly in Australia and New Zealand. But again, like no one teaches you how to feel. No one encourages you to feel, in fact. And And because of that, so many people are so uncomfortable to be in their own feelings, they actually don't know how to hold another person in theirs.
Yeah.
Which is massive. And so again, if someone is in an emotive state, they'll actually shut that down in some way, shape, or form so that they feel more comfortable. And that's really damaging as well. So yeah, just ruthless, like heartbreak. And so I turned to what I knew worked really well, which was getting absolutely smashed, like regularly. I was at university at this point in time in my life. You know, I was on like student allowance or some shit, and it was just like I could party. I could literally party every night of the week if I wanted to, and I did. I remember one of my mates being like, "Bro, you realize you've literally been out like 32 nights in a row or something stupid?" And I was like, I had no idea. Like, I was just trying to run away from myself, really. I was like, how much alcohol can I consume? How much drugs can I take? And how many women can I sleep with to try to make myself either create this false facade of like, I'm all good, or just disconnect me from the pain that I was experiencing at the time. And then that just skyrocketed everything. You know, very quickly, I started basically just living in my car, driving from liquor store to liquor store, dealer to dealer, just doing everything I could just to live in this like perpetual state of obliteration. Like nothingness was where I wanted to be. That's where I wanted to live. I wanted to stay in the void of like just nothingness. That was what I was always seeking, was ultimately that state of like that blackout drunk.
Yeah.
Like where nothing exists. It was like was complete disconnection from the self. And yeah, to the point where, you know, it was killing me. And I was only 21, 22 years old. Again, long story short, Dad ended up finding me. They had known stuff was obviously going on behind the scenes. They'd reached out to a few friends, and they had sorted her out of rehab. So this was my first stint in rehab. Ended up in rehab, and yeah, rehab was dope. Rehab was sick. Rehab was amazing. It was cool. It was like my first experience of personal development, you know, just this journey of growth and healing, whatever you want to call it, recovery. And it was just this first experience of just kind of learning a little bit more about me.
Yeah.
And actually, more importantly, being around others that were living a similar life, right? Like I thought we can get so isolated in this experience. We feel so alone. We feel like it's just us that's this fucking crazy and mental and fucked up. And the reality is, like, I truly believe everybody on this planet has a form of an addiction. It's just a stigma attached to that word that people have so much denial around it. You know, I believe addiction and distraction are synonymous. They're one and the same. And everybody, like I give talks in like mainstream audiences, right? Like not just talks to people that have gone through this journey, but talks to the general public. And I'll be like, you know, put your hand up if you identify as an addict. And you know, no one's hand goes up, or you might get one in the group maybe that it has gone on this journey of recovery, and they'll be like, yeah, fuck yeah, me. Loud and proud, and it's fun and that's cool. But you know, everyone else is like sitting there like, no, of course not. And then I'll ask a series of questions, and it gets to the point where I'll be like, cool, so put your hand up if you know that you've got something you lean on in your life when you just don't want to feel, or you don't really want to be in the full experience of life. And every single hand in the room goes up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sweet, so what the fuck's the difference between that and addiction?
Yeah.
And the light bulbs start to go off, and they're like, oh, fuck. Okay, this is starting to make sense. And so, yeah, just being around others really supported me. You know, I shared with you before we started recording, just the laughs that I had in that place, like, just that, it's like this breath and a sigh. It was just like like I'm home. I'm with my people. Like I can be me. I can be all of me. I can share all of me. I can share this fucked up shit that I thought I was going to take to the grave. And like people just are laughing with me because they've done the same fucked up, tripped out shit.
Sense of belonging, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. 100%.
Feeling included, part of something.
Yeah, exactly that. And so, but what I didn't get out of this experience was I've always been really inquisitive. I've always like just questioned everything. It's just part of who I am. I've learned to love and integrate this part of who I am. It's just questioning things. Like, is that truth, or is that my truth, or is that a truth that I want to accept, or is this just something I'm taking on board because you tell me so? Like, there's a real deep-seated inner rebel in me. There's a real deep-seated part of me that's like, fuck the system, and
We love that.
yeah. And I love that part of me, and it's definitely served me immensely. And the question that I could never get an answer to was why. Always sit there and I'll go about why me? And why am I sitting here? I wasn't really drinking that much more than it's bullshit. I was drinking a shitload more than a lot of my friends and much more regularly. But, I was like, why am I the one sitting here out of all of my friends?
Yeah.
What's contributed? What's been the driving force that's landed me in this position? And I get these bullshit answers like, you've just got to accept it, or you've just got to surrender. And yeah, there was layers of that. That was probably true. Or I'd get, the 12-step answer, which is, you've got a disease for which there's no known cure. I was like, okay, that feels like a convenient, that feels like, what was it? It was like there was a part of me that wanted to run with that, because there's a part of me that was like, oh, that's a beautiful and convenient excuse to not actually look any further than that.
Just label it.
Yeah. I'll just label it. I've just got a disease. I've just got a disease, and this is just something I've just got to manage for the rest of my life. Yeah. And so again, this might be confronting for some of you. I don't know what your audience is like. Don't get me wrong. I don't bag 12 steps. It was a huge pillar and a huge part of my own journey in recovery, but it didn't hold all the answers for me. And so that's all I have to say to that. And so I didn't agree with this disease-based model of addiction. I was like, that doesn't sit true. Yeah. So I still sat with this piece of like, why me? What are the actual driving forces of addiction? And anyway, like didn't land it, didn't come through when I was just like I was 21 years old, I was still 22 years old. I still had plenty of research to do, as they say in those rooms. And sure enough, I did. I left and maybe stayed clean and sober for like 6 months. And then just, I don't know, it was kind of weird. It just became normal for me to drink and slowly take drugs again. I'd actually developed in rehab a Valium addiction as well, conveniently.
Oh,
so that, so that probably didn't aid the process, because then I now also had a way to like almost kind of self-detox, which is really fucking dangerous. Like I'd like drink myself into oblivion, right? And then I could just chew back the Valium to try to bounce back, rather than ending up in front of someone that might have actually been able to help me. So yeah, that was dodgy, and probably extended the length of my, active addiction dramatically, I would say. So yeah, just sat on that merry-go-round. I worked in the liquor industry, of course.
Choice,
bro. Really getting amongst it.
Yeah. Before that, I was working in the radio industry, so I was working in like events and just parties and stuff like that. So these are the weird things that we do.
Did anyone warn you to not get into the liquor industry?
Everybody.
Yeah, be like, I've got this.
Of course, I wasn't listening to that. No, I'm fine. I'm sweet. I've got this.
So highly functioning at this point?
Yeah, like when I was fucking on, like when I was on as in like not drinking.
Yeah.
I've always been very switched on and reasonably intelligent, and just wanted to run against the grain. I wanted to do things differently,
Yeah.
And I think that's probably leads me to like maybe the next stage of my story, and those 22 to 27's all a massive blur. Again, it was my cycle, and I just call this a cycle of addiction, was like, I'm good, I'm coasting, insert trigger, whether that's I've had a shit day or a good day, or someone's like, yo, let's go and have a drink, and I've forgotten about the hurt and pain in the past, and that part of me that believes I can go and do that acts on that compulsion. Yeah. So to act on that compulsion, I'd bullshit my way into believing that I could go and have one drink. That one drink was like, it was like fucking playing Russian roulette. It was like rolling the dice. Am I going to be out for the night, or am I going to be out for like 3 months?
Wow.
That was the game I was playing.
Mm.
And so it would be maybe a weekend, or maybe it would literally be like 3 months of drinking every single day. And for me, that wasn't just, that was like a bottle or two of vodka a day type drinking. Like I was looking for one spot, like I said, and that was that blackout. That was the only place I could find peace. And waking up. Go again.
No, you go. I was going to say, are you mixing that vodka, or are you just
no.
making it straight out of the bottle? Yeah. Just down the hatch.
Mixing it? Or what's the point of mixing it?
Yeah. That's just watering it down.
Yeah, it was literally like, this is a bottle of water, but, it was like that was the bottle next to my bed, and it was waking up, and it was just...
straight down the hatch. Yeah. So...
And... So at 26, I think was when my dad got sick. Well before that, maybe 3 or 4 years before that, brain tumor. And so just slowly declined. It was in a place where they always had to leave a piece of it because it was too close to, I think, either a nerve or a main artery, and so it was really aggressive. It would always come back. And so, sort of 4 years of fighting this, he died. Took him out of the game. And Dad was one of my best friends. We had a beautiful relationship. He was an amazing man, incredible human being, very well revered in his industry, very well known, successful. But again, like I could look back at him now and see his life, and I can see like what contributed to that brain tumor, like copious amounts of stress. This might be triggering if any of my family's listening. Probably been in a relationship that actually didn't serve him. And I mean, I can't imagine I would have helped any of the fucking stress levels that was going on in his life. And he was really sedentary. He didn't move a lot. He didn't move his body. He wasn't unhealthy. He ate well. Mum was a beautiful cook, amazing cook, always cooked beautiful meals and things like that. But, didn't move, wasn't actively looking after himself.
Yeah.
As I always say, like I can speak about this, and for people that are listening going, oh shit, there's not much emotion to this. I've done so much work on my dad's death. Like there's so much peace within me that I can just speak to it, with love and awe and reverence, rather than being caught up in the emotion of it. And he gave me 2 beautiful gifts in his death. And one was, your health is your wealth. He inadvertently, he didn't, that didn't come out of his mouth. That was just what I witnessed. Like, if you don't have your health, like, what have you got? You've got sweet fuck all. And some of the conversations that we had before he died was like, I think he wished he did things a bit differently. And so, it was like, he was like, Drew, just fucking, like, I was really brought up in this, again, conditioned way of like, you finish school and you go to university and you get the degree and you climb the corporate ladder and you choke yourself with a fucking tie every day and, you strive to make money to fucking make someone else rich. That didn't make sense to me. And so he's like, dude, just do what fucking makes you happy, man. And so that really landed. But again, like I was still in active addiction, but I found my way into the health and wellness industry at the time. And it gave me a deep sense of purpose. It gave me belonging, gave me community. I started running my own business. It gave me a lot of these pillars that I was looking for, which was amazing. It was incredible, actually. It gave me connection, gave me something to get out of bed for. And I was really successful as well, actually, in this business.
What was it, Drew? What was it?
It was actually network marketing. It was Isogenics. You might have heard of it.
Oh, yes. Everyone's heard of Isogenics.
Yeah, everyone's had some fucking, some
Cult.
old mate from fucking high school come knocking on their door
Slide
like,
to the
hey,
DMs.
haven't thought about you for fucking 10 years. Yeah. Want to lose some weight, you fat shit?
Yep. I can totally relate.
So good.
As much as people bag it out, and as much as, again, network marketing has a stigma attached to it, it was everything. It was a huge stepping stone for me. That business I still love to this day. That company I revere. I love the people who own it, run it. I love the ethics behind that business. I don't have anything to do with it anymore. I stepped away from it years ago, but I still take the products. I love the products. What it gave me was a sense of autonomy, It taught me how to run an online business.
Oh.
It taught me how to network. It taught me how to connect. There's a deep-seated level and pillar within the business of personal development. So it actually allowed me to look outside the scope of all I had ever been shown, and what I deemed to be personal development was just 12 steps at that time. So it started to show me that there was something, another way to live, another way to be, another lens to look through, yeah? And I actually, I did reasonably well. I actually cracked it.
You get a Mercedes?
I didn't. Well, yeah, I'll get to that. I built most of my business on Tinder. So this was way back. We're talking like 6-7 years ago, yeah? Back when
Brilliant.
this would get shut down in probably a couple of hours if you tried doing it these days. But basically, I just set up a profile. And it was really black and white. It was just like I had a few maybe before and afters, and I knew that chicks Tinder very differently to guys. They actually look at a profile and they actually read a bio. And the bio was just said, like, you know, it's very straight up. It's like, hey, if you want to achieve X, Y, and Z, swipe right type thing. And so I just sit there at night just swiping. And if I made a match and they were still there 24 hours later, I assumed that they had actually looked at the profile and they were somewhat interested.
Yeah.
And so I did well, you know, and because I never wanted to be that weird seedy dude that was sliding into, you know, friends from 10 years ago that haven't spoken about. Yeah. So I guess it was, you know, it was like lead gen. It was like a lead magnet at the time without me knowing that language back then. But anyway, got really successful in that. Won myself a trip, all expenses paid trip to Las Vegas.
Lots of booze and back there.
Great place to spend someone like me, yeah.
So are you still in active addiction at this point?
Again, like my cycles were like really on and off. It was like kind of could have been 6 months sober and then like a month out of the game, and then maybe a week or two sober and a weekend out of the game, and then it could have been like 3 months sober and then you know, a couple of weeks. It was just this massive roller coaster.
Yeah.
Never really knew, you know, where I'd be and where I'd turn up, and you know, just all the shit that comes with it. I've got like over 5 drink driving charges. I've been locked up numerous times. I've had, you know, numerous accidental overdoses, woken up in hospital, you know, all the usual shit that comes with these rock bottom journeys. Anyway, went to Vegas, told all the bullshit to myself and everybody else, but myself first and foremost, that I'd be fine. Landed, conveniently got there about 5 days before anyone else that I was working with.
Oh, just a little warm up.
Yeah. And, you know, I had all the intention in the world to do it sober. Lasted about 2 hours.
Oh.
And, jumped in a cab. And cab driver turned around and looked at me and said, "Where do you want to go, bro?" Dude, I've got no idea. I've never been here for my life. He's like, "Oh, you know, it's legal to smoke weed here now. Do you want to go to the dispensary?" Let's go. When in Rome. So within like 2 hours, I was stoned. Within another 2 hours, I was obliterated by all the free booze they give you at the casinos. And 2 hours after that, I just hit up mates at home that I'd know that had been in Vegas, and they'd sent me all their hookups for gear. So I had like 2 $8 of coke, and I was fucking just out the gate. Our keynote speaker was Tony Robbins. I was like absolutely booked for Tony Robbins.
Can
you imagine a dude on coke listening to Tony Robbins? Like,
you would have been up and about.
I was pleasant. Yeah, Tony.
He would have been loving you in the crowd.
Yeah. So yeah, you know, I can laugh at it now, but it was, you know, it was actually pretty sad. It was, it got really bad, and got home and just started drinking myself to death. Really? I was living in Wanaka at the time, which was a small town in New Zealand. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful part of New Zealand that I'd moved to kind of get away from things. But again, it doesn't matter where you go, you're still taking you with you. You're still taking everything that's laying dormant inside that's actually creating this compulsion to want to escape with you. And of course, it doesn't matter where you go. Like every small town in Australia and New Zealand still got at least 3 bottle stores.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it was like, I just call it the sort of the start of my final demise, and was drinking, 1 or 2 bottles of vodka a day. I was like paranoid as shit. Didn't even I was scared to leave my room. Like just gross, like vomiting down the side of my bed, pissing in the corner. Would only like sneak out of my room to go to the toilet at night because I didn't want to see any of my housemates. Like just shame, right? We're talking about that like just that deep-seated shame of how I was living. Had a mentor at the time that my patterns, like my entire family knew that if I wasn't picking up the phone and I wasn't replying and wasn't responding, I was out the gate. And so again, they also knew. It's one of the hardest parts of this journey for family and friends involved, is that you cannot help somebody that does not want to help themselves. You can't. You just can't.
Yeah.
And so I had to get to that tipping point, and thankfully I did. I don't know what switched in me, but something just one day, I just sent. I don't even remember. I could probably, if I should go through my phone one day and find it, it would have just been a message to this mentor of mine who lived in the same town. Would have been along the lines of like, I need help. I need help. And he was around pretty quickly. He knew where I lived. He was just waiting for that message. He knew he'd lived it. He knew that he couldn't do anything until I was there. And again, they had been in cahoots behind the scenes and had written another rehab and stuff lined up for me, and a detox. And so I went through that process and went back into rehab, back into treatment. And it was like the switch just flicked. I think that moment's different for everybody. And, I don't think some people have like a rock bottom, but for me, it was certainly like a series of about 3 dozen rock bottoms before I got to that point.
Yeah.
And I can't really explain that, but it's just like this perpetual state of just, I'm done, like deep surrender. Deep, there's something within you that actually just surrenders to yourself. That's actually what it feels like. I was talking to a client about this today. It's like I actually surrendered to myself for the first time ever. And it was like this like just piece of like, I don't have to fight anymore. I don't want to fight anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to play this game anymore. And I remember just sitting on the end of this single bed. It's like this single beds you only get in fucking rehabs. And just my head in my hands and being like, what haven't I done? And I was like, the only thing I hadn't done is actually, like, I'd done everything to try and keep alcohol in my life, yeah? Everything. You name it. I'd tried it. I'd done it. I'd done sweet fuck all to try and keep it out. I'd done sweet fuck all to try to heal, to turn inwards, to take a look at me. That's the scariest thing of this journey, is that you actually have to take a look at you. You actually have to go to work on you. And you're at war with what I call like the ego. The ego is a really fascinating part of our psyche that is basically, it's there to keep us safe. In its simplest form, it is there to keep us safe, but it does it by keeping us in what's familiar. Familiarity actually means safety to the ego. And so therefore it's actually keeping us in the same in the same patterns, in the same behaviors, in the same cycles. And it will do everything to keep you in that, because change, growth, development, healing, whatever you want to call that, it actually like that, it means death to that part of us. It's a huge threat, but it's all I had left. It's literally all I had left. It was like, I didn't choose to tap out. And I unfortunately had many friends that had, whether, by their own choice and own hand or accidentally. And I damn near went that way myself. Or it was like, what about we try going all in on me and give that a go and see where that takes me. And I did. And then just that switch flipped in me. It was like, all right, let's go. And so got through treatment. And
how long was that stint in rehab?
Oh, I think your usual sort of 3 or 4 week stint. I think I tacked on 2 weeks at the end because it was coming up. It was like I would have been leaving around Christmas, New Year's.
Okay.
And New Year's in New Zealand is like, it's massive. It's huge. Like, it's just a massive excuse to like basically just piss up from Christmas through to about the 2nd. So I like locked myself in rehab for an extra 2 weeks. I was like, nah, I ain't coming out. And and then I just started this journey of healing. And then in the early phases, it was like just laying these foundational principles of what it meant to stay sober, to stay clean, and to just start to take a look under the hood, as I sort of described, right? And again, I'm really grateful for that business and that company that I was in at the time, because it took me into places that I wouldn't have potentially got to as quickly if I was just focused on a 12-step way of living or a 12-step recovery. And it started opening doors into other areas and other people and other ways of healing. And that's where everything started to land for me and make sense. And so I remember being in this workshop, and I had always said, even in early recovery, like, I'm either really okay with my dad's death, or I've just never been in a place or had never created what I now know to be enough safety within myself or capacity within myself to actually feel everything that had gone unfelt. And we did this really simple little practice, which was kind of, just to sum it up really quickly, was like an anonymous hug. Like, I just closed down my eyes, half the room closed down their eyes, opened their arms up to receive a hug from just another person in the room. And you kind of, the facilitator was narrating over the top and was just kind of encouraging you to really like drop into this hug and drop into this embrace. And I was like, oh man, this isn't too weird. Like, I'm a huggy guy. But I love a good hug. It's just, I think I'm brought up like that anyway. So it wasn't completely weird. But then the facilitator said one thing, and he was like, now imagine as if this was someone you wished you could hug. Oh. And it was just like, boom, floodgates, crack, open, just like weeping, absolutely weeping, just like bawling my eyes out.
Wow.
And it was, I was just letting it. I felt really safe in this environment. I felt really held that I could just be in this at this time, which was beautiful. And it was just pouring out of me. And, facilitator said afterwards, what's coming up, Drew? And I'm like, fuck, I've always known that I've always thought this is still in me. Yeah. And I said, this is all the grief that I never processed towards my dad's death. And this is where the light bulb started going off. I was like, addiction has got nothing to do with fucking choice. Addiction has got absolutely fucking nothing to do with the disease. Addiction has got absolutely everything to do with this human inability to feel and process our emotions. Everything. And I was like, the more I started to, ultimately practice how to feel, practice how to regulate my nervous system, understand what the fuck that even meant, I felt freer. I felt lighter. I felt like there was a less of a desire to want to escape. There was less of a compulsion to want to reach for anything from outside of myself to make me feel something that I'm not, or to take away the hurt, to take away the pain. And this is when I got introduced to Gabor Mate's work. So for anyone that's listening to this podcast, like, Gabor is the fucking GOAT. You want to learn about addiction and trauma. And again, I say trauma flippantly because I think there's a deep-seated stigma attached to both of those words these days. Deep-seated stigma attached to the word addiction, deep-seated stigma attached to the word trauma as well. But I started to listen deeply to Gabor's work. And, basically what he was saying is that we need to start to, and this was these questions I always had, right? Going back to rehab, why? And, Gabor would say one of his things that he's quoted on all the time. It's like we've got to start to look through addictions through the lens of like not why the addiction, but why the pain, why the hurt, what's compelling this person, or what is it within this person that is creating this inability to just be with themselves? Why do they need to escape? Why do they need to numb? Why do they want to run? What's that? And if we can heal that, right, it's like, let's look at the roots rather than slapping band-aids on these big fucking gaping wounds. Let's go to the roots and treat the roots. And as a result, the symptom, the addiction, the distraction, whatever you're leaning on, scrolling, gambling, porn, food, overworking, over-exercising, you name it, anything can become a distraction.
Yeah.
That disappears. The relationship to that thing changes.
I wish more people knew about that. Like we obviously hear it in the work we do, but I don't know. I just don't know if that message is being amplified enough.
Yeah, it's not.
That whole...
It's not a mainstream conversation yet.
Yeah. It's flipping that narrative from, oh, what's wrong with her or what's wrong with him, instead of what happened to him, what happened to her. Just a simple flip. It delivers a lot more compassion and empathy.
I was about to say, it's the lens of compassion.
Yeah.
And that changes everything.
Yeah.
And so, that just opened everything up for me, and I started to actually understand. And it gave me the blueprint on how to heal this thing. I was like, oh, cool. I get to go and look at what I call all these undigested life experiences. I get to go and tend to all these imprints of the past, all the stored stress in my body. I get to go and peel back these layers of the onion, right? And guess what all of those words that I just mentioned are another word for? Trauma.
Trauma, yeah. Yep.
Trauma. Yeah.
Stored stress, imprints of the past, undigested life experiences, feelings gone unfelt, emotions gone unprocessed. It's a really simple and digestible way to understand trauma, yeah? And again, trauma, a lot of people, again, with the stigma attached to that word, think it needs to be a big capital T trauma or what we call, clinically overt trauma. And unfortunately for a lot of people it is. Unfortunately it is sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, living in, war-torn countries, living in violent neighborhoods, things like this, where your life is genuinely under threat. Potentially, whether that's a one-time event or whether that's, consistently on a daily basis, that's, what we call like overt trauma. What actually I believe a lot of for a lot of people, trauma more likely is to be what we call developmental trauma. And this is what it was for me, right? Like I made this association between addiction and trauma well before I understood what contributed to the pathway I chose to take. And developmental trauma in its simplest form is just not getting our basic needs met in the way that we wanted them met as a kid. And so again, it's really hard to see, because all that was, right, was your lived experience. You didn't know any different. You've got no reference point to be like, that was, I don't like using this word, but that was wrong, or that wasn't how I wanted to be met at the time, or that's how I didn't get met how I needed to be met at the time, because it was literally just your lived experience. So it's what we call also like covert trauma. It's really nuanced, can be a lot more subtle and harder to identify. So for me, when this all started to land and fall into place was when I started really diving deep. So a lot of like what was on the surface was, just to start moving through some of these surface level things that I knew I hadn't moved through, like breakups that I hadn't processed, like my dad dying, obviously, just getting in touch with how to feel my way through and actually go and move the emotion that I'd never moved from some of these experiences. These also create looping and compulsive or repetitive thoughts. There's a bit of a sidetrack, but it's the feelings that actually create the thoughts. So if you're ruminating in something, it will be because you haven't been able to feel the feeling of what has been imprinted in the body. And so it's this like a cognitive manifestation of trying to understand what's going on in the body instead of the felt sense of what's going on in the body. So again, that made sense because I was still thinking about this breakup that I mentioned, right? That was like at like 20, fucking like 10 years after the fact, still like there. So why can't I get this person in my fucking head? And I was like, oh shit, because I haven't actually gone and like felt the emotion of what was going on for me as a 20-year-old boy.
You're numbing it.
Yeah, still numbing it. So I started going back and back and back and back and back. And I knew there was going to be some mum shit along the way because my relationship to her as a teenager was like, I fucking hated her. Hostile as shit, like loathed her. I didn't understand why. I never knew why. It was just like, if she was in my space, it was like, my body knew. My body was like, fuck off, right? Like that was the energy I felt. And so it wasn't until like I started working with many beautiful, incredible, different somatically trained trauma therapists along my journey. That's now what I do is a somatic approach to freeing people from their trauma. Somatic just means of the body, not of the mind. This is gets to be a bottom up approach to healing. So I started going back to this process and started feeling into this energy of my mum growing up. And again, a lot of this was actually pre-cognitive. It was pre-verbal. But I could feel it. I could still tap into the feeling of like, and you know, it started to make sense, right? I started to piece the puzzle together. It was like, mum was 40 when she had me. She'd had 2 miscarriages before me. So even from the day I was conceived, I could feel her fear.
Yeah.
I could feel her fear of like, fuck, this is my last shot. This is my last chance. This is, you know, like, don't die.
Yeah, the worry she would have had carrying you.
The worry, the stress, all of that, right? Yeah. Which I'm sure you guys, I think you said you're a mum, like you'd probably understand that. Yeah. And again, as a child, so that we don't have the ability to self-regulate our nervous system as a kid. From utero up until 7 is where we start to sort of individuate, I guess is a better word. We sort of start to step away from our parents a little bit more. But those formative years basically creates everything.
Yeah, those first 7 years are huge.
Those first 7 years are massive.
Everything gets...
And so right from the get-go, right, I'm attuning to a stressed, overwhelmed, dysregulated nervous system. Not only that, what I was feeling was this energy of I need. So what I can only imagine, she was like, again, this is completely unconscious to her. There's no blame to my mum. She's doing the best that she fucking could at the time. But unconsciously, what she was feeling, I've had conversations with her about this, was like, I need you. Like, I need you to survive, yeah?
Yeah.
And so what I'm making that mean about me is like, I need to be something other than what I am in order to receive this woman's love.
Yeah.
So basically, I grew up experiencing the definition of conditional love. This was my experience. And I know this isn't her experience. This isn't her conscious experience, at least. You know, she would say to the cows come home, I love you unconditionally, and I always have. It's like, okay, cool, but that's not what I felt. So what I felt was like the literal definition of conditional love. And so I grew up, again, like I said, just like trying to figure out, walking on eggshells 24/7, trying to figure out like who did I need to be in the moment in order to make sure like I was safe and I was loved. So always just like, yeah, so this is this deep-seated conditioning, and these are what we call these core wounds, right? We've all got these core wounds of, you can kind of almost always boil them down to some form of like, I'm not enough, not lovable, it's not safe to be me, not, you know, accepted, received just as I am. Like, you know, it can play out as some form of that. And this is what we call our deficiency story. And so that created this deficiency story of like, I'm just not in love. I'm not loved as I am. And that created this pattern for my entire adult life.
Wow.
And again, unconscious, completely unconscious to it. Like I said, right back at the start, I was just always, and this was survival, right? This is where we get to bring the survival piece into it. Addiction is a survival mechanism. This was a survival response, a survival adaptation. I had to fragment away from my authentic self in order to gain. We're always either looking for love or safety. That's how we literally feel as though we are going to live. We need that form of love or attachment to our primary caregivers, because they're the ones that like feed us, right? They look after us. They literally keep us alive. So we're going to figure out whoever we think we need to be in order to make sure they're keeping us alive. So we start to create these survival adaptations, these survival responses, and they are adaptive at the time, but they become really super maladaptive as we get older. And so it all just started to land and make sense. You carry on.
As I say, do you think that was the difference of when you reached out for help to your mentor as versus when you had your first stint in rehab, which sounded like it was sort of a bit forced upon you, like you weren't ready when you first went into rehab back when you were
it definitely wasn't forced on me at 20. Like, I definitely chose that. I put my hand up for help.
Okay.
But I think I don't know. I don't know. I don't answer to that. You know, I'm in a place in my life now where like I've got full trust and faith, and that my pathway was the pathway that I had to take. And, you know, I can only assume I had to take myself a hell of a lot further and a hell of a lot deeper to be able to do the work that I do now.
Oh,
Yeah.
You've taken it to like
beyond.
You know, like, and, you know, and then where I'm at now is, you know, is I can relate to literally anyone on this planet, full stop, with so much love and so much depth and so much compassion and so much understanding, because I get it.
You've been
I
at
was
both ends
there.
of the scale. Yeah.
At both ends of the scale.
At extreme.
At the full extreme, 100%.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so this was, again, like, it just started landing and making so much sense. I was like, why the fuck are people not talking about this? And whenever people come into my space and they consume my content or information or listen to me on podcasts, they're like, bro, like, oh my, why is this not the mainstream conversation? It's interesting. I'm lucky I get to do this work with so many humans all across the globe now, of all the full spectrum of addiction. You know, I don't separate anything. It's all the same. The drivers, the compulsion, those compulsive drivers are all anchored in the same places. I've probably actually worked with, I'd say, 85% females. I think that's two reasons. Number one, I think just females in general seem to be more inclined to put their hand up for help and more willing to look at themselves, more willing to be vulnerable, more willing to talk about some of these more vulnerable things. And I think the feedback I've always had a really deep reverence for women in my life, and then deep-seated respect. I think that's a beautiful thing that has come from my mum. And so the feedback I get is just create a deep sense of safety and rapport for a lot of these amazing women to come and that I get to work with. And a lot of it's also codependency. That's an addiction.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love that. And you do have a really beautiful energy, instantly vibing.
Yes,
So I can understand how you'd want to step into that space and feel really safe. So let's talk about your work then. And thanks for sharing all of that, Drew.
You're welcome. Sorry, I know you said an hour. I get a little bit excited and a bit passionate, if you can't tell.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack, and you've covered it all beautifully. So thank you for that. Obviously, and sorry about your dad too. That's really tough.
Yeah, no.
What's his name?
Murray.
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 Muzza.
Murray.
So thank you for sharing that. And also to your friend.
Thank you for asking, actually. I just wanted to say that because I wrote a post about this not so long ago. You know, a lot of people, again, it's this inability to be in other people's what they seem to be an emotional experience, and so they won't talk about it with you. And I titled this post like, let's talk about dead parents. I'm just a bit of I like triggering people, I like ruffling feathers. It's like, let's talk about this stuff. Like, it's like, let's invite people into spaces where they feel safe enough to actually speak about some of these things and to feel their way through some of these things and to reminisce on some of these pieces.
Yeah,
a memory alive.
Yeah, and I think one of the funny things that people say, "Oh, I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to trigger you or remind you." These people aren't forgotten. You're not going to. We're not forgetting about these people. I think I remember when my grandma died years ago, and I went to school, and no one said anything to me, not one person, and I was shattered. And from that moment on, I thought, I'm never ever not going to say anything. So I walked straight into it. Like if someone's died, I'm getting straight in, and holding your heart and hugging your hand, and
And guess what as well, the unconscious belief that can be created in that moment is that like it's not okay to actually be in my emotion. It's not okay to feel what I'm feeling because none of these people were inviting me to actually feel what I'm feeling. So I make the belief, again, unconsciously, shit, it's not all right to feel this way. It's not okay to speak about these things or share about these things. And so it's more suppression, more shutting down.
Yeah. So let's quickly talk about the work and how you got into this space. Tell all listeners what you actually do and what your vision is from here now.
Yeah, what do I do? I'm an addiction coach, mentor, specialist, whatever label you want to whack on the end there. I tell you, a practitioner, therapist, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. I don't really care. You choose, you put a label on it. But yeah, I work with addiction, I work with trauma, I work with codependency. And I've co-created what is, I guess, the sort of, it's called Line in the Sand.
Okay, yeah.
Our program's called Line in the Sand. It's sort of the world's first holistic approach to really approaching addiction and any and all compulsive behaviors at its root, at the root cause. Let's go and look at where this comes from rather than slapping Band-Aids over the top of just trying to, symptom management. It's phenomenal. It's quite profound. It's been my vision for many years. I ran as myself. I ran group programs for many years, and I ran one-on-one. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching and facilitation. I partnered. I was calling in some business partners, and I was running one of my group programs, and I'd always bring in guest coaches or guest facilitators or great guest practitioners, guest specialists, just to share into the space and give a different flavor. I was like, shit, who haven't I brought in that I'm connected with? And there's a couple called Matt and Ryan, and who have Ryan originally created something called the Centre for Healing comes out of Melbourne, Australia. And they just delivered this heat. They speak my language. They get it. They've lived it. They come from, again, lived experience, much like myself. And Matt messaged me after. It's like, bro, why haven't we done anything together? Why haven't we created anything together? And I just literally sat on a Zoom call with them and I'm like, here's my grand plan. Here's my vision. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to create. I want a space. I want a community. I want a program that anyone and anyone can plug into and actually create sustainable, real change and growth in their lives, something that's imprinted for the rest of their lives, something that actually gets to the core of the fucking problem. And they were like, man, fuck, we're on board. So we partnered up over 18 months ago, and we built out and curated this what I believe is we're probably one of the most revolutionary approaches to addiction that the world's ever seen. And it's growing slowly but surely. It's growing. It's gaining momentum, and it's going to change the game.
Yeah,
I've got no doubt about it.
You can hear your passion in that. Like, you can see, even your face, you're smiling when you talk.
It just lights me up.
Yeah,
it really does. It lights me up. I do a lot of different work, but that's my main drive, my main vision. I've got my fingers in a few different pies. I love doing work with relationships and couples, and there's a few little passion projects I have on the side, but that's my thing. That's my driving force.
Fire in the belly.
100%.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, just
everything.
Before we go into our funny little segments to wrap up the potty,
let's do it.
but I just wanted to ask Drew, if someone's listening to this potty and they they may not even know anyone with an addiction or have an addiction themselves, but what are some of let's give us 3 key takeouts that you want people to walk away from this podcast and really sit with.
I mean, I'd be surprised if they didn't have an addiction themselves. If they don't think they have an addiction themselves, it's because, again, they're just attaching that stigma attached to addiction. I'm yet to meet a human that doesn't have something. So get inquisitive. Like, what do you lean on when you just start to self-inquire? I call it a process of self-inquiry. And I guess this is what people call just like awareness. Start to just become a little bit more aware of how you're navigating life. So many people are operating on absolute fucking autopilot.
Yeah.
And so just start to be a little bit more aware. Like if you find yourself like in a scroll hole for 2 hours, like what's under? You know what I mean? You never heard that? Yeah, the scroll hole.
That's the best.
But that's so common these days, right? It's so prevalent. Like this thing right here, like holy shit, the ultimate distraction.
Oh yeah.
Tool, that we have in our hands for probably damn near 8-9 hours a day. It's like, just get curious. What am I avoiding? What am I trying to disconnect from? Or what am I actually getting from this thing, right? What is this giving me? Oh, it's like, wow, I'm actually noticing that when I'm, smashing 20 Tim Tams in your mouth in the space of 5 minutes, like, what is it giving you? Is there like a sense of pacification?
Yeah.
But you get the idea of where I'm going there. It's like, just get a bit curious.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that, Drew. I really relate. I have spoken about my recent little chocolate addiction, and people wouldn't when I've spoken about chocolate, they'd be like, "Oh, it can't be that bad." I'm talking the big family block, like the biggest one you can get, plus a little family block of hazelnut chocolate. I was having probably one of each of those every second day because I've removed alcohol. So what's my next thing? The next thing was social media. I removed that. Always looking for a little high. And I've just removed that. And so I thought I'd bring in coffee. So then there's always something that I'm looking for to soothe. Yeah. And now having to sit in those feelings and emotions, and it's a lot to work through. But yeah, I totally agree. There's always something we're looking for to give ourselves a little up.
Yeah. And that's a perfect way to obliterate the stigma of addiction, right? It's like, you can take away the thing. You can take alcohol out of my life.
Yeah.
But if I don't look at what's underneath that, I'll find something else.
Yep.
Oh, hell yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I'll find something else.
Yeah.
Porn.
Yeah.
Porn's really prevalent for a lot of people, men and women.
You should look at my dating. You should look at my dating subscriptions. Hinge, Bumble, and Tinder are making a fortune out of me at the moment. I'm like, looking for a match.
Scroll hole.
Scroll hole. Going hard on the matches.
But
even that
dating apps, right? It's like it's a dopamine. It's a hit of dopamine. It's a hit of validation. It's like you get that match. You're like, oh,
hit. But then that wears off. That novelty wears off. So now I'm looking for the next thing. Do you know what I mean?
Instant gratification.
Totally.
Yeah. So that's why we've got to start to look a little bit deeper and dive a little bit more as to like what's actually underneath that.
Yeah.
And how much more can I actually start to learn and practice how to be with me, how to connect with me. And that actually starts with our relationship with ourselves first and foremost, It's a bit of a fluffy word in this space these days, is self-love, but it's one of the pillars of what I teach and preach, is learning how to actually be in a relationship with you.
Yes.
We're the one person we spend the most time with. We're the one person we know the least. And most of our internal dialogue is pretty fucked.
Yeah, we would never speak to anyone the way they speak to us.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Oh, wow. What a sesh. We've loved that. What a sesh. I'm signing up. I'm coming in for some trauma work. So we're just moving on to the funny bits to sort of lighten it back up again.
Yeah, let's do it.
Thank you for that. That's been really insightful, and I'm sure our listeners can really have a look at their little vices and little addictions. So
and congratulations too.
Yeah.
Congratulations for creating a life that you have created.
Incredible. And there's no one better to be able to lead people through this space that's with lived experience. Because you've gone from so far into the scale, like extremes, like, You're the guru.
Done the work.
Done
You
the work.
have to. Like, I think I couldn't. For me, I couldn't learn from anybody else. It wasn't relatable. Like, I would just feel it. There's no rapport. There's no relatability. If someone was coming, I've sat in therapist chairs that are, clinically trained therapists that have no lived experience whatsoever. They just don't get it.
Yeah.
And also, as well, unfortunately, there's very little heart. I know a lot of clinical psychologists, and they train the heart out of you. 60% of the curriculum is ethical principles on how you can't relate to your client.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And so it just doesn't create a conducive environment to actually heal.
On that note.
I love your little mocktail glass. You're rocking.
I know,
it.
how beautiful is that?
It's so bougie. So bougie.
Well then, okay, I'm going to ask you a little random question, Drew, so we can have a little bit more to know about you. If you have carpool karaoke, who's coming in your car and what song are we singing?
Oh, carpool karaoke. Who's coming in my car? Easy. Gabriel Mate.
Oh, yeah.
Russell Brand.
Meso and Breezer.
Obviously. Might be a minivan. Eminem.
Oh, brilliant combo.
Yeah, I love that. How good.
Yeah, I'd love to have a sit down with those three.
Oh, shit,
yeah. That's so good.
Yeah.
What song are you bashing out?
What song am I bashing out?
Yeah.
Oh.
Two trailer park girls go around the outside.
I am a big fan of him. Eminem's got me through all sorts of shit, good and bad.
Good. Yeah,
He'd have to be my go-to. I'm a huge drum and bass head as well.
Oh, drum and bass.
Yeah, my roots are like hip hop.
Yeah,
but as I got older and more in the party scene, it was definitely drum and bass. What song am I smashing out? Oh, I'm just going to throw it. It sounds cliche, but for the audience, I'm going to throw in Not Afraid by Eminem.
Oh, yeah.
That really got me through some shit when I was in rehab. I think maybe the first time I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, nice. Love that. All right.
He's got a great story too, hasn't he? I mean, so's Russell Brand.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're both 14, 15, 16 years off the drugs and booze themselves, I think.
Yeah. Bookie Wookie.
Yeah, Bookie Wookie. It's a great one.
Great book. That's Russell Brand's book for listeners wondering what we're talking about.
Yeah, Russell Brand's a man. I love him.
Isn't he? Oh, so phone fuck up with a PH. Tell us something you've done with your technology.
Phone fuck up. That cracked me up when I read that today.
Phone fuck up with a PH. Just we didn't give an F for the call or text. Phone.
The first thing that came to mind was like waking up at this chick's house and just wanting to get the fuck out of there. I think I'd potentially slept with her the night before. Would have been potentially. I was, I'm not sure because I would have been that wasted.
Been a blackout.
Anyway, got up and I think she had gone out for a run and I was trying to get the fuck out of there, do the ghost, sort of escape, and messaged a mate saying, bro, like, can you come pick me up? I need a gap. I need to get out of here. And sent it to her.
Oh.
And wondered why he didn't message me back or come to pick me up. So she got back from her run and was like, maybe you should be a little bit more careful as to who you send your messages to. Yeah, that was a little embarrassing.
Orcs.
Yeah, real orcs. That was very prior life type shit. Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to use this little clip for our Instagram because that's wild.
But there would be there'd be 100 other stories just like that. Yeah.
That's a bagger. All right. Thanks for that, Drew. And the last one, we've got recommendation of the week.
It's time for the recommendation of the week.
You know what? This might be a little bit me, being a bit coachy. But go and take yourself on a date this week.
Oh,
something I encourage, a lot of my clients to do is like, go and date yourself.
Follow date.
Go and actually just do something just for you. Go and meet your own needs. And treat yourself like you would a partner or a lover.
Yeah.
And I'd say spend a little bit of it in some nature. Go and get some nature in you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And and then go and treat yourself. Go and take yourself to a movie. Go and take yourself out for dinner. Go and get your nails done. Go fishing. Fuck, whatever. I don't know.
Go to
Just
a
go and do
live
something
event.
fun. Or actually,
Yep.
a fun question to ask yourself and to play with could be like, so many of us have grown up and got so fucking serious. It's like, go on, like, tap into like your little inner boy or your inner little girl and ask them like, what's something you used to love doing as a kid that you haven't done in like 20 years or 30 years, and go and do that. Go and make yourself like a, I don't know, what do you guys call cheese
Daisy chain.
toasties and
Jaffles.
jaffle. You call them jaffles in Australia, right?
Yeah,
You go and make yourself like a jaffle and go and watch The Little Mermaid or Hook or something like that.
Well,
And,
on that note, I'm actually going to watch the Mario Brothers movie today.
oh,
with my
dope!
kids.
Yeah, so,
Yeah. I actually thought the other day I'm going to go and get a petty on Friday because I don't have the kids. So there you go. I've ticked that off.
I love that.
but
I
yeah,
was
go and treat yourself.
Yeah, I've taken myself to a few live gigs on my own as well. Comedy
Oh
shows.
hell yeah,
And
yeah, that's fun. I love going
Yep.
to movies by myself.
Yeah.
There's
Survive.
actually a
I love
ripping
that.
quote that it's not from Harry Garside, but he has said it in a potty. It says, "There's nowhere in history that says life should be taken seriously." There's
Oh, well, you're not
nowhere
going to get
ever.
out alive, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't take life so seriously because you
It's-
never get out alive.
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah, but it's so true, isn't it? Can I just ask one final question? I know
Please,
you've got to
yeah.
go, Meso, but how long have you been? Are you still off everything, Drew, or what's your relationship like now?
No, I wouldn't call myself. I don't. I'm not abstinent based.
Yep.
And that's just my journey. I was for, I don't know, maybe 6 years.
Yep.
And then there was sort of just a period where I was just like, what? There's always been this question, like, what is the level of healing, or is there a level of healing where someone can start to reintroduce some of these things into their life? And so, yeah, I won't say I'm abstinent based. I don't drink. Like, I don't. I just make a conscious choice in the moment. Is this actually something I'm choosing, or am I escaping from something if I'm choosing this? And I can look at these things now like I would, look at a banana.
Huh.
Do I want to eat a banana?
Amazing.
Yeah, okay, maybe I want to eat a
Want to eat
banana.
my banana?
Yeah.
Something I prepared earlier.
But very rarely, just the lifestyle that I live and the friends that I keep and the circles that I move in, nothing in my life is centered around drugs or alcohol anymore. Absolutely nothing. Like I had, 12 or 13 of some really good friends around on Sunday just to have a bros day. We hadn't had just a group of like guys around that wasn't in a like personal development space or like a men's circle space or like a healing space in so long. We just wanted some really like quality time together, watch the UFC, and no one even thinks of bringing beers. Like, it's just not a thought. It's not something we need to. We're also connected to who we are. We don't need anything out from outside of ourselves to be something else or other than. Does that make sense?
So refreshing. Like I just love hearing that. I just love hearing
So
that.
I say that with caution. Like, I was abstinent for many, 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 many years and did a lot of healing whilst I was. And it was like a long time down the track before I was like even considered like, could I maybe fuck with some of these things? And then there's a whole conversation of plant medicine and psychedelic therapies and stuff like that. And that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, true. Honestly, there was a
Incredible
couple
story.
of things that I wanted to just touch on is I spoke to a friend yesterday who's in active recovery as well, and he spoke about letting people get to their rock bottom moment rather than trying to fix them. They've got to get there. Does that make sense? Like,
And they have to.
people try and scoop them up before they hit their rock bottom. So they're never, ever going to get to their rock bottom. So well done by you on getting where you got, because there's a lot of people that are part getting where you got. How's my language?
Scooping yourself up.
You're channeling your Eminem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get where I got. Because obviously you've seen a lot of people not come through, and so well done on being so curious. And I love what you said about you were inquisitive and you wanted to know, and you've done the work. And also I think it was an important message that and we've heard this a lot on the pod, is the 12-step program is amazing, but it's not for everyone. And everybody's sobriety journey or addictive journey or not is so different for everybody. And I think a lot of people think if they don't get sobriety right the first time, they just give up. Or it doesn't look like yours, or it doesn't look like
Very
Reeves, or it
rarely
doesn't
see
look like
someone
mine.
get it
Right the first time.
right the first time.
Correct. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think they have to.
Of course.
And I think that's really important, that you've got to find what works for you. And you were curious and
Yeah,
quizzy,
nailed
but
it.
it didn't work. And there's just so many different options. So
Yeah.
we just
And we
love,
speak about that a lot in our course, like nothing I've created is against any other form of recovery.
Yeah.
Everything's just complementary too. It's like you
Yeah.
can do this and that. You can do line in the sand and 12 steps. You can do conventional therapy and 12 steps and line in the sand. You could do psychedelic assisted therapy and talk therapy. Find what the fuck works for you. There's a million and one different approaches, but what I do encourage people to find is an approach that does get to that core, the root of the driving forces. Otherwise, you're kind of flogging a bit of a dead horse.
Yep. Love that. Where do we find you, Drew? Where is our listeners going to find you?
Best place to stalk me down is Instagram at Drew_wild. You can find me on Facebook. Yeah, just chuck it all in the show notes. LITS, LITS, so the acronym of Line in the Sand, litsrecovery.com is our website. Heaps of, if you go through to my Instagram, click the link in my bio. There's all sorts of free links, free resources, other podcasts and stuff I've been on, links through to the website, links through to my free community online, which has got like free tools and stuff like that. So and I'm open, just buzz me, message me. I love people sliding into my DMs. Hit me up.
Yeah, love that.
So
Your Instagram is incredible. Even all your highlights with all the little tips. You can actually spend hours in there. There's so much goodness in there. So, and that takes a lot of work. So that doesn't go unnoticed, the amount of work that you've put into that. So
I was about to say, Lit's puts a bit of a different spin on Let's Get Lit.
Yeah, 100%.
I love that. Well played. Drew
Thank you so
Wild,
much,
it's been
Drew.
an absolute pleasure to have you on today. Thank you, our friend.
I feel like
Thank
he's going to
you.
be back for an encore.
I'd love to come back.
I feel like
Yeah,
it's a lot.
brilliant.
I feel like we'll organise that.
Let's do it. That'd be
much,
fun. I'd love to. And
We'd love that.
thank you so much for having me. And like I said, to anyone that's listening to this, and if any of this resonates, just feel free to reach out.
Oh,
That's
you're
so
so generous. We love
Yeah.
that. Thanks, Drew.
Thank you.
Lots of love.
See you later.
See
Bye.
ya.
This podcast is proudly produced by our audio engineer, music extraordinaire, Eric Ladd.
We love you, Eric.